Hi, I'm Charles Foster. I'm attending Holy Apostles College and Seminary in Connecticut. I am privileged today to be in Professor Yates's epistemology class. My presentation today concerns Gabriel Marcel, a 20th century French philosopher. My thesis is entitled Gabriel Marcel, Ontological Exigence is the need for experience, a sense of being, freedom, and transcendence arising from despair and the predicament of the homo viator. A person can escape this predicament and experience the transcendent, but the transcendent is not understandable. And I'll explain some of these terms as we go through this presentation so that you can feel comfortable with the objectives. Gabriel Honoré Marcel was a philosopher, a French philosopher, playwright, and musician who lived from 1889 to 1973. His philosophy is described as Christian or theistic existentialism, a description he disputed. This presentation concerns Marcel's concepts related to ontological exigence, being, freedom, and transcendence. Much of the presentation is based upon Marcel's Homo Viator, an introduction to a metaphysic of hope, which was originally published in 1962, as well as Kenneth T. Gallagher's The Philosophy of Gabriel Marcel. Jean-Paul Sartre dominated the philosophy of existential atheism. Sartre's famous dictum was, "L'enfer, c'est les autres," or hell is other people. This was superseded and replaced by Marcel's rejoinder and follow-up. Il n'y a qu'une souffrance, c'est d'être seul. There is only one suffering, and that is to be alone. The development of Marcel's philosophy is based upon the need for the exigence of being, or the urgency of being. In other words, remember that Marcel was writing after World War II, Nazism, fascism, and during the totalitarian communist regime in the Soviet Union, and during the separation of East and West Germany by the Berlin Wall, which was built in 1961, 1 year before the advent and publication of Marcel's Homo Viator. The urgency of being is the avocation of the Homo Viator. Now this is Latin, Homo Viator. This is Latin for a human being or a man on a journey, an itinerant man, a pilgrim, a traveler, a seeker, or you might call it a wandering philippic, if you have ever listened to Simon and Garfunkel. Marcel's objective is to analyze and understand man's, the Homo Viator's being and human existence and his seeking. The idealists and the rationalists of today try to explain the existence of man, the existence of his being, through a metaphysics of abstractions, deductions, and dialectical speculation. Now, Marcel reacted to this position with the phrase mystery of being and ontological mystery as against problem of being and ontological problem. And this has come to me, meaning Marcel, and metaphysical thought that becomes reflection trained on my story. Being is grasped through its presence in man and becomes man's being. As we have seen with the atheistic existentialists, to deny being leads to despair, alienation, and suicide. To deny being leads to despair, alienation, and suicide. That is one of the problems we see over and over again in our current modern day culture. To affirm being leads to hope. To affirm being leads to hope, transcendence, and communion with other beings, and being with a capital B, meaning God. Marcel's observations about life are derived in major part from his own life. We today live in a broken world, and of course so did Marcel, hic, and nunc, meaning here and now, in which ontological exigence is overcome by relativism or a monism, which discounts anything personal while ignoring the tragedy of daily life and denying the transcendent. Marcel points out in this broken world that in everyday life there is the loss of the sense of the ontological, the loss of the sense of being, and the misapplication of the idea of function. The question can be asked, what is our function? What do we do on a daily basis? What should we be doing in order to be fulfilled, to not have despair? These questions result from a broken world characterized by instability, moral decadence, crime, war, ethnic and racial intolerance, and evils which preclude the being in the world from developing or making progress. A being's functions become mechanical, boring, and irrelevant. The immediate deferral and answer to this is improved technology, robotics, and high tech in a world which does not adequately address or respond to a being's function and a being's needs. As a result, there is a loss of self-identity for a man, as well as a loss of intersubjectivity with others. There is no relationship or communion with others anywhere, and a man becomes a mere functionary, basically living alone, suffering from despair, anxiety, and unfortunately, contemplation of suicide at some points. Ontological exigence is the actualization of transcendence. Transcendence is the search for the fullness of being and a demand to transcend the world of abstract objectivity. The paradox and dissatisfaction of the functionalized world with man who has become a functionary, suffering from mechanical everydayness and ontological exigence become increasingly more difficult to differentiate. Now comes the homo viator, a participative subject who is seeking not only the state of his exigent self, but also to intersubjectively participate with other beings, a very important point. Not only do you need to concentrate on your being, but on other beings. Here we see Marcel's themes of ontological exigencies, including receptivity, availability, reflection and communion, work as a potential solution to the problems of a broken world. These dissatisfactions and the mechanical functions of the broken world lead man as a being to question, who is he? Marcel suggests that what defines man are his exigencies. Paradoxically, these exigencies can be destroyed by despair, but this dissatisfaction can also be linked to and lead back to ontological exigencies and the need for transcendence. So if you can't hit it head on, you can come in the back door and hopefully acclaim that hope and transcendence. Interestingly, Marcel does not see ontological exigence as a wish, a psychological state, or an attitude, but a movement of the human spirit that is inseparable from a human being. Marcel discusses the distinction behind being and having. Being, in its simplest form, is that I can have a body, but it's not really considered my body. It is more an object that I have, that we have. In his book, Being and Having, Marcel talks about having a dog. It is not my dog, it is not mine, but it is my dog, something separate and distinct from me. I have a body, but my body is not mine. Also, having may imply possession, but it simply corresponds to things that are external to me. Money, my house, or the things I own that I am having are external to me. They are objects. Marcel is unequivocal in saying we do not belong to ourselves. This is the sum and substance of my spirituality, worthy of the name. Being affirms itself in us. Also in our being, there is the presence of the transcendent being, capital B, by which we are. To be is to be in the presence of being. To be is to be in the presence of being, Marcel. Marcel's reflections on being are only comprehensible in light of ontological exigence, or the need for being. Being is fullness, it is plenitude. It is the upsurge of being, and the upsurge of being is to attain freedom and a transcendental joy. As Marcel profoundly observes, there is only one suffering. This is to be alone. The experience of being arises in communion with other beings. It is attributable to communion as an experience. It is referred to as intersubjectivity. While the concept of the transcendent is present to the self, Marcel is clear that I can have a body, but it is not considered my body. Similarly, while I can have a self, there is no self except when there is communion with others. Myself by itself and apart from other selves simply does not exist. It is not. Otherwise, I would be an island. Transcendence for a man is having the experience or the possibility of having this experience. The differentiation and the possibility need to exist. Otherwise, transcendence has no meaning. It is a level of awareness of my being where mystery lies and metaphysical thought becomes tainted on mystery. Now, all of the preceding concerning transcendence is summarized by Marcel as follows. It is only by way of real liberation and real detachment from experience that we can possibly rise to the level of the meta-problematical and of mystery. While this is Marcel's solution for man's journey, the homo viator, through the broken world to transcendence and the world of mystery, and while he encourages man to experience it, the transcendent is not understandable. It is a mystery. Marcel proves a classical epistemology describing mystery and a problem. Being is not a problem, but a mystery. A mystery is a question in which something that is given and cannot be regarded as detached from the self. Being is an object, but it is not an object that I can inspect from all sides, like a jeweler admiring a diamond. In order to objectify being, I have to objectify myself, which I am unable to do. A mystery cannot be objectified. It is not understandable, and it cannot be resolved. It is without solution. A solution is not available for a mystery. Now, Marcel explores other solutions for the homo viator, which he calls creative fidelity. Creative fidelity is a belief in someone and a fidelity towards being free. That freedom prompts a being to make decisions about what is important rather than living in a routine, mechanical, lifeless state. Creative fidelity encompasses not only ontological exigence and being, but freedom, transcendence, mystery, and disponibilité, or availability. Concomitant with creative fidelity is the concept of hope. Hope allows me not to despair, to become subject to alienation, or to arrive at nothingness. Hope gives me what Marcel identifies as the disponibilité, or availability, to interact with others. Hope, as Marcel describes it, is not active or passive. It is patient, but active. Interestingly, Marcel argues that only where there is the possibility of the awareness of despair can a human being respond with hope. While Marcel does not engage in a philosophy of religion in the traditional sense, he does concretely approach the preceding concepts of fidelity, hope, intersubjectivity, and transcendence in a similar fashion to the three theological virtues of faith, hope, and caritas, or love. In conclusion, Marcel clearly describes ontological exigencies, including experience, a sense of being, freedom, and transcendence, which arise from despair, anxiety, and alienation. He explores and offers a structured epistemology and philosophical approach for a person to escape the predicament, his predicament of his being as homo viator, and to experience the transcendent. However, Marcel argues that while the transcendent can be attained, it's not understandable. It is a mystery. Now, perhaps if you travel to France, to Paris someday, you will land at Les Deux Maggots, the Two Maggots, a bar and cafe named after Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone Beauvoir, but you will discover that there were other philosophers that met with the two maggots, the king and queen there at their court in the cafe in Paris. And perhaps you can imagine the profound philosophical debates between Sartre and Marcel. One man caught in the pain of despair, and one man, a homo viator, who has found hope and the transcendent. Professor Yates and mes amis, merci bien, j'apprécie votre classe. Bonne journée. My name is Charles Foster. This presentation is for Professor Yates's epistemology class at Holy Apostles College and Seminary in Cromwell, Connecticut. Thank you again for listening. If you have any comments or questions, you can email me or comment below. Thanks again. May you be a homo viator on your journey. Thank you.